Councillors, welcome to the February Council meeting. I'll begin with the Council prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity that we have been elected to serve our communities. We pray, Father, particularly for our valued volunteers throughout our region, and we praise you for their dedication and their commitment in serving our community in the way that they eagerly do with their passion and their enthusiasm. We pray particularly for them in the elderly areas where we're hearing so much about the pandemic and what it's meaning with across the nation and throughout the world. And we just pray that you'll watch over our volunteers and keep them safe along with our community. We give you thanks and just bless us throughout this meeting. We ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Members, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout the Barossa region and recognise their continual connection to land, waters and culture. Welcome everybody, welcome councillors, gallery and staff, and we have some staff who are up on the screen at the moment. So we'll move into the agenda. I have an apology from Councillor Boothby. Someone move that apology. Councillor Miller and seconded Councillor Hearn. All those in favour? Carried. The minutes from the previous meeting for confirmation. That was a council meeting held on the Tuesday the 25th of January, and the special council meeting held on the 25th of January also, 2022. Someone
I'll move that one.
moved Councillor Johnston and seconded Councillor Haybick. All those in favour? I need all hands. Carried. Thank you. No matters arising from the previous minutes. We have a petition, 1.7 on page 4. This is a petition for the flood mitigation channel in Kalimna Creek down to the Greenock Road, Nuriopa.
Move the recommendation, Your Worship.
Moved Councillor De Vries and seconded Councillor Johnston.
I have a question.
Just before that, I assume that we will be responding to the first signature on the petition. Yep.
Question, Councillor Schilling.
I would just like to know when the recent operational maintenance occurred, please. Have we got a date on that, please?
Mr Elding.
Through you, Mr Mayor. No, I don't have a specific date. If I can take that on notice and come back to you and confirm the actual date that we did that works.
Thank you, because I realise that the footpath has been recently had some work done on it, so I just wondered whether that operational maintenance has occurred around about the same time. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Wee-Smith had a question as well, and then Councillor Hearn.
Oh, it's more of a statement. Oh, yeah, good question.
Yeah, just a question in regards to how long this issue's been going on for. So I note that it's been going on since 2016 and there's been a bit of investigation work done in that time, and now we're talking about moving into some further design work. I'm just wondering, why it's taking this long to get to this point.
Mr Elding.
Through you, Mr Mayor. We've been doing a flood catchment study, and then we've done a detailed flood mapping of the Kalimna Creek. We've had to take some additional levels to make sure we get the correct, invert levels of that creek where it's been silted up, to make sure we get the right mitigation action in. And then we'll feed that into the capital works plan to do the construction activities in the creek or mitigation measures.
And just sort of further to that, do we have an anticipated date of when those works are going to commence?
Not at this stage. We'll schedule that as part of the capital works plan for next financial year.
Thank you. You've got a comment, so the mover, Councillor De Vries.
Thanks, Your Worship. No, I think we should receive this petition. We're obviously acting upon it, and I think we should give feedback to the people who have sent the petition, since they've gone to the trouble of sending it to us. It's really that simple.
Councillor Johnston.
Nothing further to add. I support the comments that have been made.
Councillor Hearn.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Mr Helmers has spoken to me on several occasions, and it's correct that it's been going on for quite a number of years. The the argument was that the silt built up right near Old Kapunda Road was one of the major problems, but Mr. Kaysler at the time said that that would not be a problem. But a lot of the pipes that drain in from the side in that area, there's a vacant block on the corner of Old Kapunda and that particular verge. That pipe, there's so much silt there now that that's actually covered over. So it has risen quite, and I've spoken to Mr. Elding on numerous occasions. So it would be good that if it could be put, nearer the top of the list before winter, so that we don't have a wet creek bed to try and excavate in due course.
Any further comment? Put the motion, all those in favour? Carried. Page 5, page 8, sorry. The Mayor's report. Any questions? Councillor Lee Smith?
Could you please provide an update on the Concordia Land Trust meeting that you had in January? The deputation with the State Planning Commission?
I'll throw to the CEO, his memory's better than mine. He absorbs much more detail and he'll do a better job.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thanks, Councillor. Really, we were just bystanders listening to what their presentation was, which is consistent with what conversations we've had. They're obviously advocating for now a plan amendment. I forgot what they call them nowadays. A code amendment. Whereas with the precinct authority not progressing, our position continues to be if Concordia is going to go ahead, it needs to be a whole master plan, not just bits and pieces. And our basic response, we really didn't talk much, did we? Was just simply to
I remember now.
just really to say you need to do, if it's going to be successful, it needs to be done holistically, and it should therefore be either a ministerial or CEO amendment, so that it's the whole of the land. Because a developer can only issue a code amendment for the land on which they have control, which is obviously not the whole of the land. It's a fair chunk of it, but it's not the whole of the land.
And it was predominantly the developer who presented. I just made some comments on behalf of the council along with Martin.
So I guess the other observation I would make is that this is the first time I understand that such a deputation to a commission happened in that way. So pleasingly, I haven't had the opportunity with the previous commission, but I think it signals a different direction for this commission.
And the developer, along with our comments, we got a good hearing and they asked some very interesting questions, and the developer provided the comment as to that holistic approach, as Martin said. Councillor Johnston.
So is it the case, Your Worship, that the principal proponent remains in support of the whole of zone development approach?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Got a further question?
Yes, Councillor.
At one of these side turnings.
Hang on a minute, did you?
No, sorry, I didn't go the right direction.
Okay, all right, okay.
At the side turning, I became aware that the Tanunda show has been cancelled. Would you care to comment on that?
Yeah, well, my understanding, unfortunately, Anguston and Tanunda have both been cancelled. And I know there was a significant amount of work put in by by staff and the contractor on site to ensure that there was as much space as possible that could have been, and there was even moving some of the work site around just to give the Tanunda show as much room as they possibly could. And we was very keen for the Anguston show to go ahead because that was going to be our council opening for the club room. So both those decisions by the show committees was their decision based on difficulty with getting contractors, volunteers being a little bit uncertain about everything associated, and I followed that, some of those comments up with respect to the emails that was provided from staff to the show committee. So it clearly come back from the show committees that that the decision was COVID related and not constraints by our work site. Councillor Wee-Smith?
I have two questions.
Yep.
Just in regards to the shows too. So the first one is just what sort of communication did we have with the two shows leading up to the works commencing on those sites, to give them the opportunity to prepare?
From what I've seen, there was extensive emails to and froing, even, well back before Christmas. And also the emails that I was aware of, the Tanunda, in particular Tanunda show, sent what area they needed to continue with their activities. The contractors was then looking at how they could shrink things down and move things around so that it could be catered for. I thought there was fairly good communication from staff and the comments that come back. CEO, you might not add further.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd also add that we've been involved in those groups who have been on the committees for near on 4 years planning all this stuff. So they've had significant engagement with all the groups, not just the shows.
No, that's right.
And further to that, it's not directly related to your report, but it ties into the show stuff here. We're obviously coming up to Mount Pleasant Show, which is the third show in our region here. What communications have we had with Mount Pleasant? Because obviously we have works that are proposed for the caravan park there, which are yet to commence. But is there anything that could perhaps have an impact on Mount Pleasant Show next month?
Well,
that we
my
need to
understanding, the
know
Mount
about?
Pleasant show's still going ahead
At
as
this
the Mount
stage,
Pleasant show. I don't know if Councillor Barrett's got any further.
I drove past the show hall at 8:30 last night. All the lights were on, there was cars everywhere. I haven't spoken to anyone since they had a meeting, so they were actively meeting last night. I've got no doubts later on today I'll make some phone calls and make some inquiries, but I haven't got the most up to date. CEO.
Sorry, just to add to that, I understand the show is still going ahead at this stage here. My concern is council's communication with the show committee and if there are any, instances that are coming up that may impact the show next month. Not their planning, more us and what impact we may have on the show.
CEO.
So we have ongoing conversations with those groups as well, and as reflected in recent communications within that community through their newsletter. My understanding of that development is the tender's only just closed and would be unlikely to be anything significant, but I'll double check that and communicate it out.
I would hate to see all three of our local shows cancelled this year and I can't see any reason why, but I think, we just need to be across that one. So, sorry to take up your mayor's report on this stuff.
That's fine, councillor. I guess unless they run into the same issues as Anguston and Tanunda, it'll be going ahead. So,
Move that the report.
with regard to COVID. Yep, Councillor De Vries, you move. Seconded, Councillor Wee-Smith. All those in favour? Carried. Consensus agenda, is there any items that members wish to have withdrawn? Councillor Johnston?
I'd just like to ask a quick question about the waste report.
Yes?
So I can withdraw that item?
Do you want to withdraw it? Yep.
I just want to ask a quick question about it, so I guess I have to withdraw it to do that.
Yeah. All right, what number was that one?
Oh, good question.
471.
Page 19.
Yeah, page 19.
Okay, thank you. Any others? I'll put the motion for the other items in the consensus agenda. Someone moved. Yep, Councillor De Vries and seconded Councillor Troop. All those in favour? Carried. Councillor Johnston, 471.
Just noting that it would, just a question of Mr Mavernack, through you, Your Worship, that whilst we've got the green bins, we've got data for the green bins, it would appear that we're not diverting considerable amounts from the red bins. We knew there was something like a 20% opportunity in there. Just a question of Mr Mavernack whether we're in a position yet to do a survey to work out what's happening with that, because we've gone to considerable trouble to try and divert organic waste from the landfill bins.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yep.
Through the Mayor, Councillor Johnson, there is an opportunity for us to do a future audit We did an audit about 12-18 months ago, leading into the mandatory green bin service. So it would be opportunistic for council to do a further audit to see how we're progressing in terms of what's going into each of the bins.
I guess to sort of echo Councillor Ware-Smith's comments, how are we communicating with people the opportunity that exists to divert organic waste from those red bins from landfill to the green bins?
So same thing, we try to use our social media to keep on plugging the messages to encourage people to put obviously their organic material into the green bin. So we do that on a regular basis.
Thank you.
Thank you. Will you?
Yeah.
It's greater communication than that as well. We obviously do in our normal quarterlies all sorts of different things, so we can do stuff in that. And I read a slightly different figure. There's over a double uptake, nearly 200.
Yeah, the uptake's there, but the amount of waste that's been diverted out of the red bins would appear to be only about 5 tonne.
Yeah, but you're not.
I've understood that.
We need to understand what would have been the normal growth. You're comparing it against a basin which was not previously.
Yeah, hence the idea of a survey. So sorry, you indulge me.
I read very different figures than I think it's been successful.
No, I think the green bins have been successful. I think what we haven't necessarily achieved is diverting waste from the red bins to the green bin. We've just got additional organic waste.
Yeah, I just know that some of the people I come across say they're having trouble putting, well, not trouble. Their red bin goes out half full most times nowadays, so I think they're slowly coming that way.
Yeah.
Would you like to move that?
Yes, I'll move that way.
Move that, and,
Oh, I can second, yeah.
yep, okay,
So I was going to make a comment or...
yep, okay.
Thanks, Mayor. I agree with Councillor Johnson that I thought the red bins would have gone down a lot with as far as tonnage goes. But I could ask Mr Mavnak if once we do this survey, I guess it's a camera survey on the trucks, what would we do if certain things were in the bins that shouldn't perhaps be there?
Through the Mayor, no, it won't be a camera survey. It would actually be a formal audit where we would probably engage the likes of KSAB to select a series of bins within certain community streets and actually ask them to audit the bins. They'll actually extract the material from those bins and do a complete assessment of what's going in which of the bins. So then that way we can actually see what are the problem items that people are potentially not putting in the correct bins.
Thank you.
Councillor De Vries.
This is just a comment, as CEO has pointed out. The total amount of waste that we're collecting during 2021-22 has actually gone up. But while that's occurred, the actual real number of amount of general waste has gone down. The organics have almost doubled, and the recycling, okay, it's dropped a little bit, not that much. I still see this as a major positive because, as the CEO pointed out, if we were comparing these figures, if the amount of waste that is being picked up this year had been last year, I think we would have seen a more significant difference in the comparison. So I think we do need to compare the base very carefully. The other thing is too, one of the reasons why we did this was we were concerned that there was illegal dumping and stuff that should have been going in the bins hasn't been, and we recognise that there is an increase in the growth of the area and that has the potential for increased wastage as well. I think this shows a very positive sign that we've turned it around. We have in real terms, in actual tonnage, reduced the amount of general waste, which is fantastic, and we've virtually doubled the amount of organic, and that was, remember, there were many people in the Barossa who were actually having organic waste picked up already. So I think for a first year out, this is actually a pretty good result. So I wouldn't talk it down. And I think that, yeah, obviously this is new for people, and this will continue. Also, 2021-22 has only been going for 6 months. So give it a chance. I think it might be really interesting to see how this will play out by the end of this this financial year. So I do not find these troubling at all. I think this is actually a very good outcome.
Councillor Havik and then Councillor True.
Actually, I was one of the main pushers for the green bins, and it took a lot of convincing. And some people didn't like them at all, but it just proves the fact that so much green waste to be going out now. Silage, whatever you like to call it. I think it's a good thing, it's an excellent result for the Barossa Valley Council.
Councillor True?
I agree with Councillor De Vries. I think this is positive. I think though people are changing habits and that takes a long, long time. And I know that working with all parents who are elderly, 80-year-olds, there's still some confusion out there. So I think the emphasis should be on education. I think also that partnering with schools is absolutely crucial. I've looked on other websites in other councils and they've got colouring in books and things that teachers can download because there's a lot of peer group pressure or child pressure that goes upwards to parents. So I think there are other things that we could explore in that education area and keeping on putting out those little brochures that say what can go in the green bin because people lose them. And I know I've had to get elderly people especially put it on your fridge over and over again so that, you know, they get that message over and over. So I think education is key now that we just keep pushing education out into the community. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Can I close the debate?
Yep.
Look, thanks for the comments, everyone. My questions were not a criticism, my questions were really about the opportunity that exists to divert more waste from general waste into the organic bins. Thanks.
Put the motion, all those in favour, that be received. Carried. We'll move to the debate agenda, the Office of Mayor and CEO. 7.2.1, the mid-year budget review as of the 31st of December 2021 on page 26. Any questions first? Councillor Schilling.
Yes, on page 43, I'd like to understand the true cost of the Anguston Recreation Park Junior Oval. It says there that it's 790k, but further down on page 46, the grant is listed as 504,240 and landscaping contribution of 350. Does that mean there's a surplus left there for extra work, or I'm just trying to understand the difference in those figures, please.
Thank you. Mr. Lake.
Yeah, sure. Through you, Mayor, the first page that you were talking about is the actual capital expenditure on that particular project. And the last page in that report is talking about any grant income that we are receiving for those projects. So I'm not really sure what the question actually is.
They're not directly correlated because the grant is for greater than that.
Yeah, that's right.
Project.
So there's surplus left?
No.
No.
No, because the through you, Mr. Mayor, the work at Anguston was 3.353 million.
Yeah.
In total?
Budget. Yeah.
Oh, budget.
And that's only a small component of the grant.
That's right, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any further questions?
I'll move the motion.
Moved Councillor Johnston, seconded Councillor Hearn. You speak the motion?
No, I think it's...
Councillor Hearn, you're okay?
No, I think
Yep.
CEO explained it quite well.
All those in favour? Carried. The monthly financial report for 31st of January on page 47.
Move the recommendation, Your Worship.
Moved Councillor De Vries. Seconded Councillor Johnston. Any questions before I, yes?
Just a question on the capital expenditure so far for the big project, the Barossa Rugby Park, 25,000. What's that relating to?
That's the planning work. Planning and development and design work.
Thank you.
Please. You will see through you, Mr. Mayor, you will see we've split some of the big project because obviously some of the work's going to happen next year. That's one of them.
The question I've got, page 49, under uniform presentation of finances, I see the total percentage of capital budget spent at 23.51% after 7 months. We've got a big hurry up coming in the next 5 months to spend a bit more, or just a bit of an explanation on the percentage after 7 months.
wanna start?
Yeah, through you, Mayor. Certainly, there, in this particular mid-year report that you've just moved is a whole lot of works that have been carried forward into next financial year. And no doubt there probably will be some other works that will be carried forward into next financial year as well. In relation to the spend to date, in recreation, it's sitting at about 27% for the year to date. And the actual and committed is 56% for all of recreation projects, which includes most of the big project. And transport is sitting at 30% spend to date, with about 61% actual and committed so far for the year. So they're on track, but there's likelihood that there will be some more carried forwards at the third quarter review for some of those projects, depending on the availability of contractors and so forth.
CEO?
Through you, Mr Mayor. So there's not a direct linear correlation to the capital spend. So yes, we tend to spend more in the second half than the first half. But as I've explained to council previously, whilst we are allowing for grants and spending as a best case scenario for things like for the big project in essence, it means if we don't get the grant, it's going to very significantly impact that figure until we move the budget forward. So I think I moved in the order of 7-point-something million forward this quarter.
7.9.
To the future, so that's going to have a big impact on that bottom line. And the reality is, what we are experiencing in the market is it's bloody hard to get contractors out there at the moment as well as get them somewhere near the budget. So that's another issue that is going on. Certainly things like the road spends, as much as we'd like to get more done early, they are correlated heavily to when our contractors are available as well, and if they can take on extra works. We can talk about it for some time, but will we ever spend the whole 100% in capital? One day maybe, but we only ever try. We try to get at least 90% of it out during. Hopefully that makes a bit more sense.
And I think speaking to Mr Elding earlier in the week, he did make some comments about some of the contractors being down on numbers because of the impact of COVID and quarantining, so that has a flow-on effect too. Yep.
And just in relation to that, also the actual budget for this year included $13 million for loan funding for these projects as well. And because we're unlikely to be able to move ahead with some of those loan fundings, we've reduced that down by $9 million in this review that you just adopted as well. So there's no point in borrowing the money if we don't need it, if we don't need to spend the money.
Any further questions? Put the motion, all those in favour? Carried. 7.2.3, the knowledge management policy on page 50.
Move the recommendation.
Moved Councillor Wee-Smith, seconded Councillor Miller. Either one wish to speak? Any questions? Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Community services 7.4.1. This is a request for funding for the Barossa Arts Festival.
Now I've sent an amended.
Beg pardon?
I've sent an amended motion through to yourself and the CEO.
I was going to put the motion. Move the motion.
Just hang on a sec. Councillor Barrett, was this?
No.
Okay.
I can't see the difference.
It's a very minor difference in brackets in point 1,
I didn't catch
excluding venue hire fees.
Can hardly hear.
We got it?
It's very minor.
Trying
got
to
it?
do two things at once.
Okay, we got it?
Got it. So just to clarify, if that's passed, we're still charging venue hire fees.
Okay, all right.
Discuss if I
Thank you.
get the opportunity.
Are you moving that way?
Yes.
We've got a mover.
Well, I move that one.
Yep, move Councillor Wee-Smith. Seconder,
Yeah, I'm happy to
Councillor
do
Barrett. Either one wish to speak any
Yep.
further?
Okay, Mayor, I've just put forward a motion with a minor amendment that I feel is very important, given the discussions we've been having around venue hire fees and community groups. I don't feel comfortable waiving the venue hire fees for a festival or an event like this, when we haven't done that for a number of community groups that we're currently in discussions with, as per the last meeting. So it's a minor change. I absolutely support this festival. I think it's a fantastic idea and we should be getting behind it. These are the sort of arts events that council should be supporting. They do deliver real benefits to our community and the broader community. But yes, that's just one little thing I personally don't feel comfortable with.
Question for the CEO.
Yes?
How much are we talking about with the venue hire fees?
I have through you, Mr Mayor, I have to defer to Kirsty.
Ms Hargey,
I think that's still being finalised, how many events are announced.
have you got the question?
For you, Mayor. Sorry, I'm struggling to hear what Martin's saying in that corner. I don't have the full answer to that. It would be massive, and it comes out of our fees and charges register rather than our lease and license fees that we charge generally. And we have the component to be able to provide a 50% discount anyway for a community group to be doing the ad hoc booking. So that is a possibility. But I don't have the answer on what that would look like right now. We're still awaiting the full details of all the venues that they would require for the council anyway.
To follow up on that, can you give us a ballpark, because we are being asked to make a decision based on a financial difference between the recommendation and this new one? I'd like to know what that difference is, even if it's just to the nearest $100.
I mean, through you, Mr Mayor, it is difficult because we don't have the list of exactly how many of our venues they're going to use.
In the report, it states the Tanunda Soldiers Memorial Hall is.
It does.
Yep.
That's a slab.
Waived
It does.
hire fees for Tanunda Soldiers Memorial Hall for exhibition and workshops.
So through you, they do identify up to 60 different events, so we don't know how many events they're holding there yet. So each one would obviously attract a different fee at a different time.
Ms Hargey, yep.
Apologies again, I am not being able to hear the corner, but where Martin is. I've just had a look at the list we've currently got from them, which isn't the finalised list. At the moment, the two places that are being offered is obviously the Barossa Regional Gallery and the Bush Gardens. So even if I just look at the Barossa Regional Gallery, which has a fee hire, it would only be around a $200 cost to rent that space for the time that's required. And in general, if we are a partner, as in the Barossa Regional Gallery is a partner with an artist to provide an event, we don't always charge for that event anyway, if that's the way it works. We haven't had a request for any other areas in our facilities, spaces, or our community facilities at this point. Potentially that may come up, but I don't have a request for any of those at the moment.
If I could follow up with one. So what you're saying is that events of this nature getting free use of the gallery has been something that we have been quite happy to do in the past, is that correct?
Through you, Mayor. Definitely if we are a partnership with an artist, we generally won't charge a usage fee because we're obviously partners with it. The only time we charge a fee for the gallery is if it's an independent group that's coming in to provide a program or service that is not being run partly by ourselves. So yes, that's correct.
Okay. In that respect, Your Worship, I'll be speaking against this motion once we go into full debate.
Thank you.
I have another question. Can you hear me over there? Yeah. Was the $200, would that be considered to be a part of the in-kind support that's in the original motion, recommendation in the papers?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Through you, Mayor, that would be correct.
Well, in that case, I'll speak against the motion.
Yeah, what was moved, I haven't got a seconder, I don't believe.
Yes, you do.
Have I? Oh, councillor Barrett, that's right, sorry, councillor Barrett. You wish to speak to the motion further? And then I'll give councillor Barrett an opportunity.
Yeah, as I said, this is a very minor variation to the recommended motion. But as I said, in principle, I feel it makes a really big difference. So our last meeting in the chamber, we had representatives from our community group come to us seeking to have their hire fees for the hall waived. This is a group that has to fundraise to be able to pay those hire fees. It's not a festival that is going to be bringing in some form of income, however little that may be. So as I said, this change is an in-principle change. I don't feel comfortable when we're still having discussions. That matter that we discussed at that meeting is currently laying on the table. And if we're not prepared to offer this same service to our community groups, how can we be offering this to a essentially for-profit event? As I said, absolutely no issue with supporting this festival here. I think it's a fantastic idea. It's so great to see someone at the grassroots level trying to drive something like this, and I think we should be supporting it as much as we can. You know, we're going to put forward $3,000 in cash to help, as well as in-kind support. But those venue hire fees, as I said, it's a particularly touchy subject for a lot of community groups, not just the one that spoke to us in December. We've had other deputations from smaller groups who have absolutely no income stream seeking assistance there. So in principle, I really don't feel comfortable with waiving venue hire fees for an event like this.
Councillor Barrett is seconded on the motion.
Yes, like Councillor Smith, I feel uncomfortable in this matter. I had to exclude myself from that previous matter because it directly involved an event that I attend in Mount Pleasant. This is a totally different event and I support it fully, and I think it's tremendous that we're having such events spread throughout the Barossa. I'm not condemning it, it's just the consistency in our approach as a council, and that is where I feel uncomfortable whilst that other matter still lays on the table. And that's all I've got to say in relation to the matter.
Councillor De Vries.
Yes, I'm actually, funnily enough, speaking against this motion for the same reason, for consistency. This is an event which we are a sponsor in. In effect, we are going into partnership with this event. We have never done this, or at least as I understand it, it's very highly unusual for us to charge ourselves for the use of an event because we are one of the event providers by being a sponsor, and I think we're kind of conflating two completely separate things. When a user group uses a facility that the council holds in trust for the entire community, that's quite different to an event where we are actually a sponsor of that event and actually in effect being part of the team that's putting it on. So I understand the symbolism of what's being proposed here. I understand why it's being done. But in this instance, I actually think that what it is doing is it's conflating two completely separate approaches. And for that reason, I think that I would like to, out of consistency, stick with the way we've done this in the past, which is that when we sponsor an event like this and then when we're providing in-kind support, one of the things that we can do towards that, which is of zero cost to the council, but is of huge benefit to the festival itself, is to actually waive the hiring of the hiring costs of the facility. Thank you.
Does anybody else want to speak for it before I take another one that's going to speak against it?
Speak. I actually, through you, Mr. Mayor, I support the motion. I think that we need to have an underlying consistency to our community. I can't explain to my I advocated for a weaving group or something like that, a group that did knitting or something like that. How can I explain that, as a non-for-profit, your group is no more important than, or more important, less important, whatever, than a bigger group that's actually getting money for their events. So I actually think in consistency, and it might be different to what we've done in the past, but it's consistent with a policy like a fairness throughout the the whole region, that we have not accepted any waiving of fees for smaller groups it's just important for community health as these bigger events. So I'm not sure how a knitting group is different to like a bigger group who is actually getting funds for their ticketing. So I think it's a small thing, but it's a culture change, and I support Councillor Wee-Smith in this.
Councillor Johnston, you wish to speak against?
Yes, I do. I think it's kind of illogical that we would be sponsoring something and then taking the money back. So we're in fact in partnership with this organisation, sponsorship and support of the Barossa Arts Festival, and I think that conflating a venue rental for the purposes of this event that we're sponsoring with licensing fees, which are a entirely separate matter, means that we would be inconsistent if we support this motion. So I urge members not to vote for it. Thank you.
Councillor Hayden.
Mayor, I'll be supporting the motion. I think that there was only 18 months ago when the hiring of fees was discussed by council in relation to the cost of halls. One that was brought up was the CWA hall in Untitled, where a group of women there, and I can't remember who they exactly were, but they did crocheting or whatever. They had very little income, but they wrote to the council wanting to have a reduced fee, and it was knocked back. So we need some consistency. If we don't go that way, we'll have all sorts of problems in due course. So I think I support the motion in relation to that.
Any other comments? Councillor Angus?
Yes, Mayor, this is borderline 50-50. Might have to phone a friend, but I'm inclined to support the motion just because we're a partner in this. Doesn't mean we can't charge a venue hire, and I think we're trying to be consistent with everything. On balance, and I was thinking, no, let's go back to the original motion. I'm inclined to agree with this amended motion that if the hire fees are only a couple of $100, that is not disadvantaging other groups who would be expected to pay those fees. So I will support this motion.
Thank you. It is an interesting one, isn't it? To say the least. It almost borders on verge that we're going to charge for everything in the future.
Yeah, this is gonna be consistent, it's not for other things.
Yeah, anyway, that's it. I'll put the motion.
Can I
Oh,
close the
sorry,
debate?
you're going to close the debate, sorry.
Since we've had a bit of discussion around this, and I agree, with Councillor Angus, it is very 50-50. But I think essentially at the end of the day, it's about optics and it is about consistency. And it's about the consistency that we're looking to provide the free use of a space to a for-profit event. It's been said that, it's zero cost to council, and I agree, it is zero cost to council. So why would we not provide this service to our community groups who don't have an income stream? So we're talking about consistency, and you want to let, essentially someone who's going to be making some money for an event use something for free, but we've got other people who don't have the capacity to pay for it, or have a limited capacity to pay for it, yet we're not going to provide the same option to them. And as Councillor Troop said, it's about being consistently fair, and I think that's what we're seeking to do here. There may be instances where other events have, waived these fees, but then I think that's part of a broader discussion we need to have as council. Perhaps it's not just about our community groups, it's about, okay, so what facilities do we provide to what sort of users, and at what kind of rates or reduced rates. As I said before, the event aligns with our arts and culture policy, and I'm happy for us to provide as much in-kind support as possible towards it. It's as I said, it's great to see someone at the grassroots level trying to drive something for this that's going to deliver real benefits to our arts community. And I can see that already, and I can see this growing to be a great thing. But at the end of the day, it's about the optics of actually waiving the venue hire fees for something that, you know, on that day perhaps a community group wants to use, and they need to pay for it, whether or not they want to pay for it, but we're going to provide it free of charge to someone else. So, yeah, in the interests of being consistently fair and ensuring that, you know, we are maintaining our principles here, I urge councillors to vote for my motion.
That, I'll put the motion. All those in favour that we, all those against, the motion is carried. Will be an interesting discussion in the future.
It will come up again many, many times.
Thank you.
Show holes.
Next item
show.
is
Discussion required.
a request for additional
Use a
ongoing
page,
support
councillor.
for the New York RSL sub-branch, page 74. Before you get to that item, Mayor, I'd like to declare a perceived conflict of interest. I'm a member of the Mount Pleasant RSL, and even though it's RSL, they're Newry RSL and Mount Pleasant RSL are totally separate entities, even though I am a member of the RSL. I would intend to stay in the chamber and vote on this matter. Thank you.
Move the recommendation, Your Worship.
Second.
Moved councillor De Vries, seconded councillor Angus. Wish to speak to the motion, sir?
I too have a perceived conflict, but I don't believe I have an actual conflict in that I'm a member of the Tanunda RSL. This is something that is really just trying to get consistency across the area, this area. In fact, I think I might have even brought this up to the council back in whenever we decided that we would take on the watering of this area. We spend a lot of money, and rightly so, on looking after various facilities in the Barossa which support the RSL. The Tanunda Memorial Garden is a very good example of that, and everybody compliments the council on, you know, how well that is maintained and looked after, and you know, I support that obviously as well. The New York RSL Memorial Garden is something that needs to be equally respected. Prior to us actually helping them out, the Anzac Day services were often held in muddy or very dusty conditions depending on the weather, and we've gone a long way towards addressing that. As the report states, they need additional help to maintain that amenity for the area. I think that this is something that is worthy of our support, and we should be looking after it, just to be consistent with the way we're treating other townships.
Councillor Angus,
I have nothing further to add, thank you, Mayor.
any other comments? All those in favour? Carried. Page 77, this is the garage sale trial participation.
I'll move the recommendation, Your Worship.
Second.
Moved councillor Johnson, and that was seconded councillor, was that you, councillor Hayden? Wish to, any questions? Wish to speak to it, councillor Johnston?
Other than the participants shouldn't be so noisy outside my house.
Move house.
There seem to be a lot of garage sales on my street on Sunday.
I think that we should.
Saturday.
Very noisy.
And Sunday.
Councillor Hayden?
I think we should put some placards up around his house to make sure. That's all. It's a good.
It's fantastic.
All those in favour? Carried.
Wouldn't happen in New York.
That's the end
That's
of
just a
our-
normal day there, isn't it?
That's our there's no confidential item. Any other urgent other business? Councillor Miller.
Thanks, Mayor. I guess by now most people realise that I have sold my conveyancing practice, which will continue. It'll be owned by a firm of lawyers from Adelaide, Anderson's Lawyers, and they'll continue on in the same building and so forth with legal representation as well. I think it's fantastic. It came as a bolt out of the blue to me just prior to Christmas. I'd been talking about it, thinking about it, but didn't know how to go about it, and I got a phone call, understand you're thinking of moving on. So as of the end of this month, I will be moving on as far as that side of my life is concerned. As far as other parts of my life is concerned, I have issues with one of my children in medical problems caused by Army service, and we are endeavouring to support him and his family as much as possible. As a result of that, I will this afternoon be forwarding to the Mayor and the CEO my letter of resignation from as a member of this council, effective as of the 28th of February. I need to be able to spread myself a little bit further, and unfortunately we will probably leave the Barossa region as well. So at this stage I think it's best that I resign as a member of council. Free up some funds that you can use for footpaths, Mayor.
I'd agree with that.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. May I say, it's with, a little of sadness that you say you need to resign. We understand your situation and appreciate that, the health of your family and your son is paramount. But with that in mind, may I congratulate you personally on behalf of the council and previous councils for the manner in which you've conducted yourself in the chamber. Your representation within the community has been one of involvement with many projects. I know that Tanunda Oval's been very near and dear to your heart, along with another building called the Show Hall. So, but Councillor Miller, we wish you all the best in the future, you and the family, and we're sad to see that you won't be sitting up there. You speak when you need to, when you feel you need to speak, and it does add enormous value to the conversation. So on behalf of council, thank you sincerely for your contribution, not only to this chamber but to the wider community, and your representation wherever you've sort of been throughout the areas. And I'm sure other people would wish to further say something, and I think Councillor Smith had a hand up first.
Yeah, only Councillor Miller to reiterate the Mayor's comments. Thank you for all that you've done for this council and for this community. I think we all understand and absolutely respect your decision. Family is everything, and nothing should stand in front of that. So we wish you all the very best.
Thank you.
Councillor De Vries and Councillor Johnston.
Richard, I knew this might happen. I'm really sorry that it's come to this, but it's been an honour to work with you, mate. I've been there since the very beginning with you. It's been
16 years.
a great journey that we've all shared, and many times you and I have spoke at length on the phone, where I've taken great counsel from you. As far as I'm concerned, once a councillor, always a councillor. Anytime you want to talk to me about council matters or just discuss what we're doing, you have my phone number, and I hope that everything continues. Good luck for the future, and once again, it's been an honour, mate. So thank you very much.
Councillor Johnston.
Councillor Miller, just in case SARS, whatever happens next, that I don't get this opportunity, I just want to thank you for your mentorship and counsel over the last 3.5 years, particularly with the Barossa Assessment Panel, and I really value the help that you've given me, and not often you get a chance to speak personally in such a way, but I really valued your considered and careful counsel. Thank you very much for your service.
Councillor Hearn and then Councillor True.
Yes, Councillor Miller, it's been good to work for you over 2 councils, because I had a gap in a gap term or 2 terms in between. But you lots of advice when we were both on the Development Assessment Panel together all those years ago, and that was certainly appreciated. You've been I've been a customer of yours as far as the properties that we've sold over the years as well. And on behalf of Jennifer and myself and the other fellow councillors, I too would just like to wish you and your family all the best. I can fully understand. We have a little boy as well, and he's part of the family, and your family certainly comes first and is paramount to being a councillor. So on behalf of us again, and I just endorse the other comments today that you'll surely be missed.
Yeah, Councillor Troop and then Councillor Having.
Just speaking as a new colleague, knowing you for these 4 years, I just am really privileged. I think that also your presence, your stability here, and also your measured wisdom has been a real value to the voice of the council, and I just appreciate it personally because you've been a great mentor and example to me. And also personally, I just really wish you well with your son, and that we will be praying for you with wisdom, and that he would actually find some solutions, and that you will be graced with that to help him. We support you in that 100%. So thank you for your amazing presence. You will be missed.
Thank you. Councillor Having.
I'd like to also endorse the comments, Richard, that everyone else has made, but in particular for me, the number of years you've spent on council giving back to the community, and I think that's great. So, good luck. Thanks.
Councillor Angus.
Richard, you've always been a very, very good, strong supporter for your hometown Tanunda, but equally, when there's been support needed for other projects around the district, you have always put your weight behind that, and you're to be commended for your very fair, impartial, astute way of dealing with matters that have come before us. And I speak as a long-term councillor along with Councillor De Vries. Thank you for your contribution, and I wish you all the very best with your family in the future. Thank you.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's absolutely true what Councillor Angus says. I know you've travelled all the roads around the wider district quite often too, so well done. So Richard, thanks once again for everything you've done. I reckon we could probably organise in the not too distant future, very quickly, a little gathering for lunch just to sort of have a last toast as in your role here, but you'll always be a friend and a mate, and would always like the opportunity to catch up with you in the future when we can. But we ought to, I'm going to suggest that Janine will arrange something and we'll all get together and say our final farewells in a more informal way. So thanks very much, mate.
Yeah, can we give Janine for some tissues over there?
I just about need it. Members, that concludes our council meeting for today. That's our next scheduled meeting is on.
One other thing.
Oh, sorry.
Before we close, I went up to the Rex the other day and had a look at the job that's been done there, where it's costing the council a fortune, as we know. And it's a good thing to go up and have a look and see what has been done and what has to be done. And I think we can then get a better appreciation of the $450,000. So I'd like everyone to, if they can, just drop in. I had a tour there by the Belgravia man, and he explained everything to me. And the tiles are sitting there. They had in excess of 9 workers there each day, so they're getting on with the job. So yeah, it's costly, but I think it'll be worth the dollars at the end of the day.
Thank you. Councillor Hearn, you.
It's not on the agenda, but I'm just.
Well,
can we talk about signs?
Who?
The signs.
Oh no, we'll close the meeting because we're urgent other matters is running into. Okay, with that, so with that, I formally close the council meeting. So thank you for your attendance.